All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast. So, this current head coaching cycle in college football has been super bizarre, to say the least, with the biggest of the big news so far coming yesterday when North Carolina decided to hire former New England Patriots head coach Bill Belichick to lead their football program. Now, of course, the news and the head coaching hires didn't just stop there. Some other notable hires so far in the cycle in college football. Scott Frost is returning to UCF, while Rich Rodriguez is returning to West Virginia. And how can we overlook Dan Mullen taking over for Barry Odom at UNLV? But starting first with Belichick, and of course, we've been hearing the rumors for several weeks now. And honestly, since we're nowhere close to it being April Fool's Day, guess what? This is actually happening. So the guy who led the Patriots to six Super Bowl championships as their head coach in the National Football League and has never been a coach, assistant, position coach, whatever, at the collegiate level is now taking over in Chapel Hill at UNC. Now, North Carolina just fired the 73-year-old Matt Brown last month, and I expected UNC to get a little younger, but they really didn't because they just sat up here and brought in the 72-year-old Bill Belichick to lead this team. So, of course, you see this and you ask yourself, well, what are the chances of this working? And honestly, for me, I'm not trying to sound like a hater, but I am skeptical at best as far as Bill Belichick having success at North Carolina. Now, one thing that Bill Belichick has talked about, he wants to implement a pro style system for North Carolina. He wants to create a pipeline to the pro level. But of course, will it work? The reason why I bring this up during Belichick's time with the Patriots, and he had a lot of time with that organization, he often had issues in regards to paying his players when they were seeking more money. So I really want to see how Bill Belichick is going to deal with the transfer portal and the NILs. And of course, in the current game right now, when players get benched, they're already out the door in the transfer portal. It's not like the National Football League when there's a trade deadline. It's not like the National Football League when these kids have a contract and you dictate things to them. Now with this transfer portal, the balance of power, if you will, has shifted. And of course, if these kids get benched nowadays, they're already looking out the door to go to another school and play for them. Okay. Another thing for me with Belichick is this. He had 24 years of running things in New England, but how many young players did he really develop there? I know, we're going to talk about Tom Brady, sixth round pick in 2000. You had Rob Gronkowski, you had Julian Edelman, you had Asante Samuel before he left in free agency, and there were others. But more often than not, Belichick did not hit on his draft picks. Belichick's biggest success came from bringing in veteran players that knew how to get it done. He brought in versatile players. He brought in guys who knew how to be cogs in the wheel. How is that going to work at the collegiate level? That is going to be big for me. Um, Bringing in former NFL executive Michael Lombardi to be the general manager of North Carolina's football program. And that's something that we're seeing in this day and age with the transfer portal and the NIL and bringing that more of a professional style approach to it. We're seeing a lot of football programs and basketball programs, for that matter, having general managers to trying to like operate over things. A guy like Michael Lombardi, who's worked with Belichick in the past and has been a right hand man. Let's see how that combo can work at UNC. Now, in the NFL, Bill Belichick was the pro equivalent to Nick Saban. Okay, we know about the success that Belichick had in the NFL. We know about the success that Saban has had in college coaching. Once upon a time, Saban was Belichick's defensive coordinator with the Cleveland Browns in the early to mid 90s. Or, of course, there were several other up and coming coaches on Belichick's roster during that time. Also, Kurt Ferentz, who is the current head coach at the University of Iowa. But nonetheless, to me, and we found out Saban is better suited for college. They're basically the same mindset. You were talking about Saban and Belichick, but I just still, again, I'm just very skeptical to see how Belichick is going to be able to get it done at the college level without never really doing it. Okay, uh, I get it, and I keep getting it. He's itching to get back into coaching. Um, for me, I look at Bill Belichick. He was so close to surpassing Don Shula. For me, one question is, was there not a professional job out there in the NFL for Bill Belichick in the head coaching ranks? I mean, you look at it, there's clearly going to be some head coaching positions coming available with the end of the regular season right around the corner in the NFL. But I don't think Belichick was going to fill any of those seats because you look at it, a guy like Bill Belichick, it's not just that he probably wants say in personnel decisions. Bill Belichick probably wants a lot of say because remember, all of those years in New England, he was a general manager. During his time with the Browns, he was also the general manager as well. A team like the Dallas Cowboys, of course, people have been rumored or put the rumors out there as far as Belichick possibly going to Dallas. It would have never worked because I simply don't see Jerry Jones giving up any type of control. That's the big thing. So when it's all said and done, Bill Belichick is going to try throw his hat rather in the college football ring, and it's amazing because he was so close to surpassing Don Shula for the most wins in NFL history by a head coach, and by him going to UNC, I don't see it happening right now. So I'm like I said, I'm skeptical at best about this working off of Bill Belichick. I know there's some people who think it will work. I know that there's some people out there that think it's going to be a complete failure. I'm of the wait and see model, but I'm still not holding my breath on it. I just really want to see how Bill Belichick is able to relate to the young kids. That's going to be the biggest thing for me with him going to North Carolina. That's why it's up in the air. But not stopping there. Take me home, country roads, as Rich Rodriguez is returning to Morgantown to be the head football coach at West Virginia. And I'll tell you like this: sometimes we see coaches, regardless of the sport, uh, they take the money, okay, and they are never happy at the previous job. They never find the same success. And the reason why I bring it up is this. If Rich Rod had never left West Virginia in 2007, the folks in Morgantown more than likely would have built a statue for him right now. Okay. Because that is the way that he was trending. You're talking about a guy that played for WVU, came back as their coach, and he had this team on the verge of playing for the national championship. Remember in 2007, it was a couple of missed field goals by Pat McAfee against Pitt that prevented the Mountaineers from playing for the national championship. And of course, after that game, Rich Rod took the Michigan job, and it was downhill for him there. Never had the success at Michigan that everybody was hoping that he would have. It was just a bad fit. Okay, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Did have a slight resurgence at Arizona. Did get them to 10 wins in 2014 in a Fiesta Bowl bid, but it was downhill from there. And of course, the resurgence at Jacksonville State. But nonetheless, if Rich Rod had never left Morgantown, they would be talking about him like he's a god. And it's going to be interesting to see if he's going to be able to recapture that. It's big for West Virginia, and the reason why I say it is this: since they joined the Big 12 in 2012, they have never won a conference title. They've never even gotten close to a conference championship game. And then from 2005 to 2007, under Rich Rod, the Mountaineers had three consecutive 11-win seasons. Since then, West Virginia has only won 10 games twice, with the last one coming in 2016. And of course, the question is going to be, will Rich Rod be able to have similar success that he did before. I'll tell you like this, his hire definitely gets the fan base going. Okay, but it's going to be a work in progress because you got a lot of things have changed in college football since the last time that Rich Rod coached at West Virginia. Most importantly, they were in the Big East. Okay, you're talking about now a 16 team cross country league that the Mountaineers have to find their way in. And I mean, last year, the Mountaineers under Neil Brown went 9-4. That was their best season since 2016. But the thing with West Virginia that they've had to deal with since joining the Big 12 is inconsistency. Will Rich Rodriguez be able to make the Mountaineers consistent? That is going to be the key. Unlike Rich Rod, Scott Frost did not leave his alma mater when he was at UCF. He left UCF to go to his alma mater, hoping that he could turn things around at Nebraska. And it was one of those. I really feel for Scott Frost that if it was anybody else that had offered him the job other than Nebraska, he would have stayed at UCF in 2018. But that was not the case. Home came a calling. Scott Frost was a starting quarterback for the Cornhuskers when they won a national championship back in 1997. And it just seemed like the perfect fit. Never came to fruition in parts of 5 years at Nebraska. He was 16-31. And honestly, the only reason that he got that much time is because he was one of their favorite sons. But at the end of the day, the losses piled up 10-26 in the Big Ten. And to give you an idea of this, he went 16-31 in 4+ seasons in Lincoln. He was 19-7 in 2 years at UCF. And he took over a program at UCF that did not win a game in the prior year. They went 0-12. It's one of those things similar to Rich Rodriguez. He's trying to recapture the magic. And of course, things are a lot different now for UCF than they were when Scott Frost was there first time around. UCF was in the American, different conference than the Big 12, the jumbled Big 12 with 16 teams. You have to find your way to navigate through that. You look at UCF in their 2 years in the Big 12 so far, they're only 10-15 overall. They're 5-13 within the league. So all of that has to change. They have to find a way to compete. And it's not like UCF has not gone out there and gotten coaches. They had Scott Frost. He left. They had Josh Heupel, until he took the Tennessee job. They brought in former Auburn coach Gus Malzahn, who initially did have success with UCF in the American Conference, but of course, he did not have that same success with UCF in the Big 12. That is something that Scott Frost is definitely going to have to change. And then there's also Dan Mullen. And for Dan Mullen, you knew that this guy was going to get back in coaching because all he did was win. We're talking about a guy who was 103-61 during his time as a college head coach, first at Mississippi State, and then, of course, at Florida. And you figure Mississippi State is not an easy place to win, okay, especially in those days with the SEC West and the SEC East. And you think about it, one of the smallest schools in the SEC, okay, and being in the SEC West in those days, Mississippi State was up against the likes of Alabama every year, LSU, Auburn, and Texas A&M, just to name a few. And for Dan Mullen, he held his own in the SEC. He went 33-39 within the conference during his time with the Bulldogs. Got them to 10 wins in 2014, 9 wins the following season, a couple of 9-win seasons in Starkville. And then, of course, he took the Florida job. He was on his way to having success there. 3 winning seasons, a couple of berths in the, one berth in the SEC championship game, a Peach Bowl bid, an Orange Bowl bid, and a Cotton Bowl bid. But 2021 saw him go 5-6, and the powers to be there decided to go in another direction. Dan Mullen, in my opinion, is a guy who has forgotten more about coaching than most people walking the streets know. And you look at it, he's coming into an ideal situation for him because this UNLV program is trending upwards. And of course, they just lost their head coach, Barry Odom, to Purdue. And if you're UNLV, you wanted to go out there and make a hire that was going to captivate your growing fan base. And now the Rebels are really looking to build their football program. They play at Allegiant Stadium in Vegas, which is also home to the Las Vegas Raiders of the National Football League. They are building their facilities. They're building their NIL program. They are making this a more enticing job because they are a sleeping giant. And you just look at UNLV, they're ranked this season for the first time in school history. And had they have beaten Boise State this past Friday night in the Mountain West Championship game, we're talking about UNLV in the college football playoff right now. This is where this program is headed, and it is trending upward. You look at the way that quarterback Hajj Malik Williams plays, for an example, a runner and a thrower. He is a guy that, just using him for an example, I'm not sure if he's coming back or not. Eligibility, transfer wise, I'm transfer portal wise, I'm not sure right now. But I will say this, just using him as an example, a guy like Hajj Malik Williams would thrive in Dan Mullen's offensive system, both as a thrower and as a runner. And you look at things for UNLV with Boise State and others set to leave the Mountain West after next season to join the new Pac 12. Everything is set up for UNLV to run the Mountain West going forward. And I think with a guy like Dan Mullen at the controls of this program, they are definitely set up in the right direction. A lot of coaching changes have come and also are continuing to come in this coaching cycle. Another one, I like Bronco Mendenhall leaving New Mexico to join Utah State. Of course, Utah State is one of those programs in the new Pac 12. They've got some money to work with. And I think Bronco Mendenhall, after taking time off, after being at Virginia, he knows the West Coast. He knows that mountain region. And I think the Aggies are in good hands with him. Like I said, the the coaching changes are coming fast and furious, but I think these are some of the most notable ones that we definitely have to keep our eyes on. For me, which of these coaches do I think has the best chance to succeed? I think I'll give Bronco Mendenhall a year or two before he gets this Utah State program up and running. But I really like Dan Mullen's chances at UNLV to keep things going. For me, like I said before, the one I am most skeptical about is Bill Belichick. And honestly, I'm still skeptical about Rich Rod going to West Virginia as well as Scott Frost going to UCF. We've seen it more often than not. We've seen head coaches who chased the money at other schools and decided to come back later in their respective careers. And it really doesn't work out that often. We saw Randy Edsall do it at Connecticut. He was building a program there before he left to go to Maryland. And of course, when Maryland was in the Big Ten, Randy Edsall couldn't keep up. Tried to come back to UConn. It was not the same. We just saw Mac Brown, who got fired at North Carolina. North Carolina was trending upward when Mac Brown left in '97 to take the Texas job. Came back a couple of years ago. It was not the same. And that's why I'm on the fence about both Scott Frost and Rich Rodriguez this time around. Like I said, Rich Rod had a good thing going at Morgantown, and he took the Michigan money. And again, money always does not buy happiness. And like I said, I'm really on the fence about Bill Belichick. I'm not sitting up here looking for him to fail, but again, you're talking about a guy who's never been in the collegiate ranks. He's a guy who seemed out of touch at times. With his personnel. You look at the personnel like decisions, as far as the development of a guy like Mac Jones. I mean, you basically had a defensive coach in Matt Patricia and a special teams coach in Joe Judge trying to work things out for Mac Jones, who was your franchise quarterback that you alleged franchise quarterback that you took in the first round a couple of years ago, and it simply did not work out. So, like I said, I am skeptical at best as far as things working out for Bill Belichick. Excuse me. But nonetheless, these schools, they feel like they have the right people going forward to lead their respective programs as they try to keep up with the Joneses. But nonetheless, there's always plenty of action to talk about on the college football scene. These head coaching hires are definitely raising some eyebrows. And let's see if these coaching changes will lead to success for these schools in 2025. 5. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out. Drop a line to be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.